Yes, folks, welcome to Beyond the Pitch. I'm Phil Brown, and absolutely delighted to be joined here for the first time with a gentleman I know very well, another one I'm glad to have on the show for the first time, Stephen Howson from Full Time Devils. Everyone knows who Stephen is, of course. Gareth Roberts from the Anfield Wrap, which is a fantastic place for Liverpool fans to go get information and touch with the fans. I'm really pleased that both of them decided to do this. It's going to be a bit of crack. United Liverpool fans debating each other's history. We'll take a look at the up and coming game this weekend, of course. First of all, boys, how's things?
Good, mate. You?
Not too bad, mate. Gareth?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Obviously, hoped for a better result in the first leg of the match just now, but it's only half time. You still got to play them at Anfield.
Yes, I didn't see it. So just quickly on that match, was it a full strength Liverpool team?
Not quite. No, we're still missing. Coutinho only played half an hour or so. I think he'd be ready for Sunday. We're still missing Henderson. We're missing Matip, and obviously Mane's gone away to the African nations as well. So all of those players were missing. He decided not to start with Origi as well. He came on later on. So yeah, arguable about how he lined up, and obviously a few injuries as well.
Stephen, I'll start with you, mate. Of course, the match this weekend against Liverpool. I would imagine it's going to be very difficult to the game we saw at Anfield earlier in the season. United on their best run for 9 years, 7.5 years, 9 wins on a trot. As a United fan, you must be going into this with a lot of confidence.
I am, yeah. I predicted a draw ahead of the game at Anfield, actually, because I didn't think that we was going to go into it looking to attack. I did think we would try and counter-attack a little bit more in the channels, but it just didn't happen. All the accusations about us parking the bus, I got no problem with that whatsoever, because getting a 0-0 away at home at Anfield when you're not in form, I'm taking that all day long. And I think the form that Liverpool at the moment, I think they take a 0-0 at Old Trafford. But I do go into this with a lot of confidence. We're on this incredible run. I hope we make it 10. And if you look at the form of both sides, you've got to fancy United coming into this, I think.
You may disagree, Gareth?
No, it'll be a difficult game. It's always a difficult game when you go to Old Trafford. It took me a long time to actually see Liverpool win there in my sort of match-going life, if you like. Obviously, we've won well there a couple of times. The 4-1 stands out, the 3-0 as well when you were under Moyes. I think it'll be a difficult game, though. It's always a difficult game. And what worried me about Liverpool sides in the past was that they went to Old Trafford, and if I'm being perfectly honest with you, they bottled it. They were overawed by the stage. They were overawed by the occasion. And there was too many people not performing on the day. Whatever side we end up putting out on Sunday, and there's some debate about what that'll be, and we don't know about certain players and how fit they are, all the rest of it. One thing I'm confident of is that Liverpool will not bottle it this time, because I think that's what one thing Klopp's instilled in Liverpool is some fight. And whatever side we've put out, we might not have played the best football at times. I mean, if you look at when we beat Man City on New Year's Eve, we didn't play that well. We just battled, though. We battled. We got a chance. We took the chance, and then we sat on that one, and we got the 3 points. Something similar at Old Trafford, I'd be delighted with that. I'm not looking for Brazil 1970. I'm just looking for 3 points.
I think that's always the case between United and Liverpool. How you get the 3 points doesn't really matter. Just like you were saying, I don't think most United fans, given where they were at that point, were that bothered by the 0-0 away. But have you seen, Stephen, what you see in Mourinho's team now, reminiscent of what we saw under Ferguson?
I don't know about that. I think we're still finding his feet a little bit with Jose. I think the midfield that he sort of settled on with Carragher and Pogba was fantastic. Massively underrated by every single person that's not a United fan. I think everyone's just looking at it, shrugging the shoulders and being like, it's nothing special. Pogba's not scored 25 already this season, so he's obviously not having a good season. But if you watch him, you'll see how well they're playing. And that platform that they create allows us to go and do other stuff. And I think Mkhitaryan, he's going to be massive in this game. His introduction over the last few weeks has been absolutely phenomenal. He's played absolutely incredible every time he's lined up recently for United. And I think with Zlatan coming back from, hopefully whatever it is, it's not a major thing that's up with him, this illness, if there is even an illness. There's some people suggesting it's Mourinho mind games for this. But if Zlatan comes back into it, we've got Mkhitaryan. I'm not even bothered who plays on the left. Whether it's Lingard, whether it's Marshall, whether it's even Wayne Rooney, I think we've got enough to get behind that Liverpool defence. I see a lot of frailties in there. I think you are playing well, and I think credit to Klopp because he has got you playing a real identity. but I think the team just isn't good enough. And I think a couple of transfer windows down the line, you might look like you're going to do something. I just think you're a bit thin and a bit weak for it at the moment.
What's your response there, Gareth? That?
Well, I mean, we're halfway through the season, aren't we? We're over halfway through the season now, and Liverpool are taking, I think, 44 points, which one of our best totals at this stage of the season, if not the best, I think. Obviously, Chelsea being absolutely flying. I think if that wasn't the case, that, you know, Liverpool would obviously be top. But I just think, look at some of the results Liverpool have achieved already this season. We went to Arsenal and we won on the opening day. We went to Chelsea and we won. We were unlucky not to win at White Hart Lane as well. So we've gone to tough places and we've got results. This is no different. I mean, tonight, I think a lot of people will look at the game against Southampton and say, well, Liverpool haven't played well there. They didn't. That is very true. And in fact, over the last couple of weeks, really, we've not really been playing the best football, I'll be honest with you, and some of the results haven't been the best. Obviously, he made a lot of changes in the FA Cup, and that's probably one of the reasons we end up drawing with Plymouth at home. So I wouldn't read too much into that. But the squad's getting stretched at the moment, you know, and you're probably right to say that if we can put our first 11 out, then we're a match for anyone. When we're starting to lose a few to injury and that sort of thing, well, it's a little bit of a different story. I think tonight we really missed Henderson. We could have done with Coutinho on from the start. I would expect both of them to start at Old Trafford through what I've heard about fitness and everything else. That being the case, that'll be a huge boost for Liverpool. And like I say, Liverpool have given everyone a match this season. You know, we've lost silly games. Obviously, we lost to Burnley, we lost to Bournemouth. But I think big games, Klopp's record's good in general as a manager as well. For big games, he seems to be able to get his players up for it. So I'd predict it's going to be close. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You know, I'm not really. You spoke to me for years, mate, and you know that I'm not really one for coming on and having a load of banter. It's not really. I'm not really about that. You know, it is what it is, and the game goes where it goes. It'll be tight. You know, there's good players on both sides. I'm not one of these Liverpool fans that has been writing United off, to be honest. I mean, you look at United's squad, and there's a very strong spine. The keeper's great. You know, you've got decent centre halves. You've got a decent midfielder in Pogba, obviously. And Ibrahimovic, I think, has been a bit of a revelation, to be honest. I thought maybe he was a bit too old, but look at the amount of goals he scored. He looks to be one of the fittest fellas in the world. I mean, maybe someone needs to have a look at the hard urine testing or something. But, he's doing something right, that fella. I hope I'm that fit one day. I don't think I'm going to.
Steve, talk to me about Liverpool's team. If you could pick 2 or 3 players out of that Liverpool team, who would you pick out of that team?
I think it's probably only Coutinho that I'd take. I think if you go man for man and line the two teams up, I think we've not got the best centre-half partnership at the moment, apart from Bailly, who's not going to be available this weekend. But I think man for man, there's probably only Coutinho that I would bring in, and that would depend on the system as well. That's what I mean. Klopp's getting more out of this team than the sum of the parts, which is commendable for him. But I think that's where they're going to come unstuck ultimately, is that you're only going to go as good as the team can carry you. And I think our results to this day at the moment, we're underachieving a little bit with the squad that we've got and the players that we've got. And I would expect, because of the level of players that we've got in the squad and level of players that Liverpool have got in the squad, that we're going to cross paths at some point in the season, and we are going to end up above Liverpool come May, I reckon.
Gareth, when you look at United, they've been after a different type of player than what they've been after in recent seasons, more or less the high end. I don't even want to use a Galactico word, but Liverpool have a very different strategy. Are you happy with the way Liverpool buy players that will be developed, or would you rather see Liverpool buy at the top end of the market?
I think both is probably the answer. What I'd like to see from Liverpool is maybe not have the handcuffs on because of a policy. So, for instance, right now, Liverpool are second in the league, doing well. Everything else, an opportunity to win the title there. You're in the January window now. For me, if there's someone in there, if there's someone out there, and there will be, who can improve this squad, can step in and can do a job, I would hope Liverpool go out there and bid for him. But I mean, it's already been said yet again, same as always, really, under this ownership, that it's got to be a certain profile of player almost. They've got to be of a certain age. They're not going to go out and make short-term buys. We would certainly never buy someone like Ibrahimovic, who we just talked about, because, you know, his wages for one, his age for two. So they've got to tick certain boxes. And Klopp's message all along has been about development. That's what, and if you go back in his career, that's what he's about as well. I don't think he's just putting platitudes out there. I think that genuinely is how he wants to work. He gets the best out of his group of players by putting trust into them. I mean, I'd argue, by the way, about the quality of some of the players we've got. Joe Matip is one of the best centre-halves out for a very long time. I think he walks into the United side for one. Sadio Mane has been brilliant for Liverpool this season, and he's a big miss for us right now. Yeah. I think United was sniffing around him anyway, and then Liverpool come in and get him. So, there's a possibility he could have ended up at United. I think if he was at United, he would be getting a game here and there. I don't believe that he's no good.
So, I didn't say he's no good. He's definitely good, but I wouldn't choose him over Mkhitaryan on that right flank.
Well, Mkhitaryan's only just come into a bit of form, hasn't he? I like him as well. I mean, I used to watch him when he was in Germany. Seen him
almost went to Liverpool too.
Yeah, I'd almost come to Liverpool. I was quite surprised how his United career looked to be panning out, and I'm not surprised now that he's got it on track. Same with Mourinho as well. I mean, much as I hate the fella, he's obviously a quality football manager. And when he was having his little Alan Parsons, phase, and it looked like he was going to start dismantling the trouser press in the hotel rooms, it seems he's come out of that now, and he's actually settling into the job. And it looks like he's enjoying now being a Manchester United manager, which I don't think was the case, not very long ago. I mean, going back to that Anfield game as well. I mean, I would agree with him there to say that I wasn't surprised in what he did, because United weren't playing well at that time, and he's very just, I'll just go to Anfield, I'll get a draw, I'll come away, and in the grand scheme of things, a draw at Anfield looks okay. Same for us, if we go and get a draw at Old Trafford, I'd probably take that as well. So yeah, I think Manchester United are becoming Manchester United, aren't they, again, sadly? I had my fingers crossed that they were going to do a Liverpool post-Graham Souness, and, you did your best getting Moyes in, and he destroyed what he could, and then Louis van Gaal wasn't looking much better. So, but, you got yourselves a decent manager now, a decent spine to the squad. And, yeah, unfortunately, I do think you're coming places. Whether we can now overtake Liverpool, I don't know about that either. Because I think you might have left it a little bit late in the season for all this. It's a decent run that you've been on. Have you beaten anyone decent really in that run? Spurs maybe, but beyond that, there's a lot of 2-0s. There's a lot of you come back and you beat Middlesbrough. It's only Middlesbrough boys, you know what I mean? So
didn't they get a point at Anfield?
Well, we just talked about that. Came up with everyone behind the ball. It's not champagne. It's not quite the champagne football, is it? I would argue with United. I think you've seen it in bits and bobs.
We're a long way from being a finished product, and I think that's why you're not seeing a lot of United fans getting overly carried away. I don't think about the position that we are in. We're just happy that we're putting a run together. And if you look at some of the games, all right, we was blown away by Chelsea. There's no answer to that. You got to roll your hands up. It was incredible. Watford, we was rubbish. Let's not even forget about that one. But even the City game, we could have got something, and probably should have got something out of the City game. Maybe a penalty, maybe a red card. Zlatan should have put his chance away at the end of the second half. And then there's that run of draws against average teams like Arsenal. The Arsenal team that came to Old Trafford was absolutely bullied off the park. Yeah. And we definitely should have picked up 3 points there. And then even if you look at the Stoke, the Burnley, all of those, the Marouane Fellaini cock-up at Everton, if just 2 or 3 of those don't go to a draw and they go to a win, then we're already ahead of you in the table. And I don't think we need to up what we're doing in terms of results or in terms of performance to get there. If we beat you on Sunday, we're only 2 points away from you. And I think with the run of form that we're on, I think it's almost inevitable that we're going to overtake you. The only issue we've got is what happens when Europa League comes back in, because our form's coincided with not having to worry about that.
Steve, I want to ask you about that Jurgen Klopp, because Gareth has been quite effusive about Mourinho despite hating him. What do you like about Jurgen Klopp?
He's a likeable guy, and I think the press have absolutely fell in love with him because he's quite affable, he's quite talkative in his press conferences. He's always got a decent soundbite, and it's not the sort of whiny stuff that you do get from Mourinho, and it's not sort of as vindictive as you get sometimes from Mourinho, and he does seem extremely open. Whether that's a good thing for him or a bad thing for him, I think he's unafraid to tell the truth, which is always a real good thing. I think the press have gone a little bit overboard with him, though, and they're looking at only the good things that he's done and not some of the flaws that he's got. Everyone's flawed. All these managers have got something that they've done that, they maybe isn't the best thing that they've done in the world. And they're looking at his Dortmund record and seeing only the achievements and not where he ended up with them. So I think he's a great coach. I think there's a lot of great coaches in the Premier League, and there's far too little success for the amount of managers that there is going around, I think.
That's true. Gareth, why is Liverpool a better city than Manchester?
Why are they what, sorry?
Why is Liverpool a better city than Manchester?
It just is, mate. It's more romantic. We've got a big river running through the middle of it. You can jump on the ferry. We've got lovely buildings. Everyone's dead friendly. We're a good laugh. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Go to Manchester, it's just raining all the time. Everyone's miserable. You and City are just arguing with each other all the time these days. Who's the biggest club and who's got the most fans in the city and all this. We're not worried about Everton anymore. They just, who is. So, it's a little bit more relaxed than Liverpool these days, and it's getting ever more cosmopolitan these days as well. So yeah, what do you want me to say, mate? I'm obviously going to say Liverpool. Manchester.
What about
big?
What about you, Stephen?
Impersonal.
Stephen, why is Manchester a better city than Liverpool?
It's tough to answer such an obvious question like that, isn't it? Really, Manchester's come up with so many great things that give to the world, from the computer to the atom and everything like that. Manchester's the epicenter of modern civilization, essentially.
So I'm surprised none of the two of you brought music into it.
It is that. The Beatles, the Lars.
So is there? You pointed out, Stephen, about some of the strengths that Liverpool have. Is there anything in that Liverpool team that worries you beyond any other teams? Like, is this another Brendan Rodgers team, or is there something more solid about? And I'm asking Stephen, not asking you guys. So I'll get back to you in a minute. Do you worry about the more Brendan Rodgers team?
There's definitely more to this. Definitely more of a threat than Rodgers. Rodgers was almost a laughable character, really, wasn't it? You could take the piss and not know that just know that he wasn't going to be a threat to you. It was laughable. We don't call him deluded Brendan for nothing. Have you seen what he's just been talking about? Celtic would be a top 4 team in the Premier League. That tells you everything you need to know about Brendan Rodgers. No, I think Klopp's a lot more serious, a lot more ruthless, a lot higher ability in both his own philosophy and his ability to put that into the players. I don't think this Liverpool team on paper is as strong as what Brendan Rodgers had as well, though. So I think that's a little bit of a worry, because if you do find yourself someone as good as Gerrard, because let's face it, Henderson being the successor to Gerrard is absolutely laughable. It's like Tom Cleverley taking over from Brian Robson. So I'm not having that. That's an improvement for you guys. But if you do find someone that can be a successor to Gerrard, if you do find someone that can be the next Suarez and score that amount of goals for you, I do think you're going to be a threat. But at the moment, there just isn't enough of a threat there. I think you've have done well on the back of having no European competition. But I do think once the rubber hits the road in the run into the season, you're going to fade away.
Gareth, you don't like Mourinho. Liverpool fans don't like Mourinho. Tell me why they don't like Mourinho, and would you ever take Mourinho at Anfield?
No, I'm glad he's late for the Liverpool job. I'm glad he didn't come. I just don't think he's a very classy person. I don't like the way he continually moans. And I think you know all the answers to this yourself. I read United We Stand fanzine quite a lot because I know some of the lads, and it went on for a long time in that fanzine about people being divided about Mourinho being Manchester United manager. So I think Man United fans know all the arguments. You know, a fella who runs the length of the pitch and slides on his knees and all that sort of thing. A fella who runs to the end, you know, and he's giving it all this on his lips and in cup finals and things like that. You know, and then there's things that he did in other jobs as well, eye gouging and all kinds of stuff. He's just not a nice fella. And also as well, I just think he's a bit brattish. I mean, I think when it's good for him. When things start to go wrong, they go very wrong, and that's why he loses dressing rooms. That's why he falls out with physios, coaches, and everything else. So I'm sure there will. I mean, you know, with the budget, with the players, everything else, with the spine of that squad, like I've mentioned, I'm sure there are good times, unfortunately, for United under Mourinho to come. But for how long, I don't know. Is he a manager who develops your youth system? Is he a manager who brings kids who will be at United for 10, 12 years? Or is he someone who, you know, plays with a big budget and wins you things that way? I would argue probably the latter. I think Klopp is much better suited to what we want, in that we needed to be rebuilt again as a club. and he's trying to bring every facet of the club together. So the first team, the under-23 team, the academy, and already he's only been here a short time. I think we've all got to remember that. He's only been here a short time, only a little bit over a year, and already, we're up near the top challenge for the league. The youth system feels a lot better. He's giving kids a chance. You said the atmosphere at Anfield's better because he told us to make it better. It feels like a club again, and that's important to football.
I want to ask both of you this question. Start with you, Stephen. Has the rivalry between Liverpool and the mood of the fans towards Liverpool evolved? Is there still the same cynical hatred? Is it still the same? Is it softer? How has it evolved on the ground between United and Liverpool fans, Stephen?
I don't think it's changed. I think what's happened is City's been elevated with the introduction of Pep and all the money that they've had there. So they're in the picture, but Liverpool's still the enemy. Liverpool's still that one that you've got to focus on. And I think come Sunday, you're going to feel it at Old Trafford. Mourinho was very clever in what he was doing, criticising the fans and himself and the team, I think, last night, because he knows that's going to elicit a reaction Sunday. But he didn't really need to do that because Old Trafford for Liverpool doesn't need winding up. It's already going to be on fire anyway.
What about you, Gareth? Have you seen an evolution amongst the Liverpool fans towards how they feel towards United? Is it still the same as what you would see in the 80s, or has things changed?
It's definitely not like what it was like in the 80s, mate. I think you know the answer to that. I mean, you look back at 1985 playing semi-finals at Goodison Park, and there's golf balls with nails flying around and all kinds. I mean, thankfully we've moved on from those days. There is obviously still a rivalry. There is obviously still a hatred. But I mean, to be honest with you, I think on both sides of both clubs, it's been diluted to some respect in that I'm not sure either club these days enjoys the local support that it once did, simply because it's harder to get in the ground because of price of tickets, because of the football's now a global game. I think you'll see at both grounds, unfortunately, when Liverpool are playing Man United, you will see people wandering around in half and half scarves. Now, I wouldn't be seen dead in anything that has, John. I would burn that. That tells you everything. In the 1980s, you would not have anyone at either end of the ground wearing that kind of gear. So the game's changed, but it's still, it's still there. It's still special. I think between Liverpool and Man United, when it's right and when the atmosphere is good at both ends, there's something that almost hangs in the air. There's a special feeling about them, and I enjoy it. I enjoy that edge. I enjoy that my stomach's in knots, because rivalries are important to football, and I think modern football can dilute that to some extent. But it's important that I don't want to use the word proper fans, but traditional fans, whatever you want to call them, it's important that that's retained, and that we do say, but in the right way, by the way, as well, because one thing I would say, and I've said it in every single thing I've done about Liverpool and Manchester United, is on both sides, we do not need to be talking about people dying.
I agree. I completely agree.
There's no place for that. There's no need for it. We can do what you did. We can say we're a better city. We've got better clothes. We've got better haircuts. We've got better music. There's plenty of things we can call each other on and off the pitch without resorting to talking about hills or high school or music.
I would agree with that. There's just there's nothing. I mean, at some point there has to be a line. I want to ask you, both of you, Stephen. I'll ask you first. What do you think 20 years from now? You hand United off to your children as a fan, and what do you think Manchester United look like 20 years from now? Does it concern you?
Yes and no, because what Gareth's saying about the half and half scarfing, I mean, when did that start coming in? Like, how did that evolve into the monster that it is now that you see with people wearing them and posing with them outside the ground, outside all the statues and stuff like that? When did that start? Because I don't really remember any sort of definite moment of that starting. It's just sort of crept in to be as prevalent as it is today. And I do think that's going to get worse, but I actually think there's going to be a rebound. I actually think you're probably going to start to see a bit of a turn. And I think you're going to see some sort of return to a little bit of the darker days of the 80s because of people's just absolute disgust of the modern football and absolute hatred of what it's become. And I think there's always that rubber band effect, isn't there? When something goes one way, it'll bound back the other way as fast as it has done. And I think the nice side of football, the posh side of football, the prawn sandwich side of football, if you want to quote Roy Keane, I think that at some point it's going to come to a head and it's going to bounce back. And it won't be the same sort of hooliganism that you saw in the 80s, but there's definitely going to become an edge, I think. That's coming back round, I reckon. It wouldn't shock me that in 20 years' time, football's gone backwards in many ways rather than going forwards. And that might not necessarily be a bad thing from an atmosphere point of view.
What about you, Gareth?
Where do I see what Liverpool's like in 20 years?
Yeah, like, you know, you have kids. Are you concerned about the direction Liverpool's heading? And maybe not just as a football club, but just the game in general. Are you concerned about what you'll hand off to your kids 20 years from now?
A little bit, yeah. I don't think either Liverpool as a club or the Premier League or any club really is investing enough into getting children into the game, either playing or actually in the ground. I think they do stuff to tick boxes. I think they do stuff to placate fans who are moaning about it, like myself. But I don't think it's enough. You know, Liverpool have just extended the ground. It's 54,000 now. Are there more kids in there? Not really. For Plymouth, you know, to be fair to Liverpool, the tickets in the Cop were only £14 for that game, and so okay, there was more kids in there for that game, but that's against a League Two side. You know, your Premier League games, stuff like that, it's fellas in the 40s and older who were in the seats. I imagine it's a similar situation at Old Trafford by and large. And that does concern me, because I think the reason I got into the game and the reason I'm still talking about it and writing about it at the age of 40 is because I went to the game when I was a teenager and I got the buzz. I saw the floodlights, I saw the green of the pitch. I heard the shouts, I got involved with the chants, all that. And you can't beat that feeling. And if you're watching it on the television or you're playing FIFA or whatever on your Xbox or your PlayStation, that's not the same. And it doesn't feel real, I don't think. I think there's a disconnect. It's a different way of consuming football, even watching it on streams and all this, like you see these days on the internet. That's not the football I know. You're just watching the game take place through a lens. You're not in the ground feeling it. And you've got to be in the ground to feel it, to get the buzz, to really want to engage with the game. And I think if you look back to things like that Richard Scudamore said in the past about the Premier League, he doesn't care about season ticket holders. He doesn't care about people who go week in, week out. If he had his way, and the same applies to a lot of Premier League chairmen, by the way, they would like a transient support that was a different 54,000 every other week, or at United a different 75,000 every other week. They're not interested in loyal supporters. You know, one of my friends has been going to Anfield since he's 8 years old. He's had a season ticket for 32 years. If he walked away at the end of the season, no one would bat an eyelid. It's all about bums on seats, modern football. It's not about actual caring about the fans.
They also know that when you go to a stadium and you're visiting it for the first time, you're going to go to a mega store, you're going to do tours, so that fan is worth much more to them than the fella that goes every week.
You buy a program, they eat all the overpriced food, they pay for the overpriced beer. People like us who go a lot, who know the score, you go and drink somewhere else, you go and eat somewhere else because you know you don't want to be ripped off by those prices. Yeah, you're quite right. And so, you know, from a commercial point of view, they actually don't want people like me in the car.
Last question to both of you. Stephen, start with you. In recent years, when United have been quite active in the transfer market, spending a lot of money, the anger over the Glazers seemed to have disappeared. What's the feeling amongst United fans towards the Glazers? Is it just, was nothing we can do? Is there still deep resentment? What's the feeling amongst United fans inside the ground towards the Glazers?
I think I'm glad you just put at the ground, because I do think there is a difference between at the ground and online, certainly. But even in the ground, I think there's a large apathy to them. There's a few people, myself being one of them, which just, I want them out of the club. I think what they saddled with the club with in 2005 was a gamble, and they gambled on the TV money coming in. We could have gone down the way of Leeds. It could have gone like the ITV Carlton deal. No problem. That wouldn't have been out of the question for that to happen. We've done some amazing commercial stuff. We managed to sell the name to a training ground, which is down a private road, which no one's allowed to go to, for over 100 million quid. That's amazing business sense. I've got no issue with that. If it ever comes to the fact that they want to try and sell Old Trafford, there's going to be riots. But ultimately, the larger fan base, the fan base from Southeast Asia and from all over the world doesn't care. They would just want to see Paul Pogba's brought in every single week. But when you think about the fact that we spent more than what we spent on Paul Pogba this summer, which got how many headlines that we was ruining the game by spending that on Paul Pogba. We spent more than that every single summer since 2005 on financing and resurfacing the debt, which might as well have been me that bought the club because they've put enough in it. You know, I could have put whatever's in my pocket in today, and it'd been more than what the Glazers have put into the club so far. So I think there's still a bit of a resentment to the Glazers from a lot of people, and we've lost a lot of hardcore support because you obviously know what happened with FC United. There was a lot of top Reds that moved on to FC United. There was a lot of Reds that went, well, I'm never going back to Old Trafford. They only go to aways now. And it caused this unnecessary split in the support. But a lot of the foreign fans, they don't see that. They tell me, they argue with me and tell the Glazers are good business owners and that debt is a good thing and businesses need debt to survive. And it's not that they've got this debt to invest into the club. We didn't need their money to come in. We was a perfectly fine business prior to them coming in, and with the TV revenue, we could have broke the transfer record every single season by ridiculous amounts without them. And I'd like them out of the club, as simple as that. They've got Ed Woodward, who's their blue-eyed boy at the moment, and he's going nowhere. But if we had a football man, and Must is obviously working towards fan ownership, but to be honest, who's going to have the $2 billion required to buy the Glazers out? I think it's a pipe dream. I think it's not going to happen. I have no idea how we get the Glazers out of the club. It's a big mess, mate.
Right. Gareth, back to you, mate, with FSG. What Stephen was talking about there, about the collapse, very nearly happened to Liverpool before FSG came in. Of course, Hicks and Gillette made an absolute mess of that club. What's your feeling and the feeling of the Liverpool fans towards FSG?
Ambivalent, I reckon, at best at the moment. I mean, Liverpool are obviously doing well, and a lot of fans are fickle. I think we all know that. And so at the moment, everyone's sort of like, well, they did well to get Jurgen Klopp. They have extended the main stand. I mean, there's other fans, me included, who would say, well, you should be extending the Anfield Road now because there's still a problem with access at Anfield. There's still fans who can't get in the ground on a weekly basis. There's still what we've just talked about, local kids who'd love to go to the match but they're priced out. And it's within the power of the owners to make Anfield even bigger. There's outline planning permission to extend the Anfield Road, but that expires very soon. And it doesn't seem like they're that keen to do it. So that would be a criticism, obviously. There's what we talked about earlier as well about, they seem very rigid in a policy at times in terms of how they want to spend and that sort of thing. I mean, it does feel like Jurgen Klopp's in charge, to be fair. But I would say that. And it kind of felt to me a little bit of a last roll of the dice getting Klopp in. Klopp is an old school football manager in that he's a proper leader. I mean, you might all laugh at me when I compare him to someone like Bill Shankly, but Bill Shankly come in and led the club. He took the club from Division 2 nowhere to where they were, and that's what. Liverpool were in Division 2, but it needed leadership after Brendan Rodgers and all the rest. What had gone on, Hodgson, Dalglish, everything else. It needed someone else to come in, steady the ship, but also have a vision for the future. And I think Klopp's done that rather than FSG, if I'm honest. FSG deserve the credit for getting Klopp in, but I still think they get things wrong. I still think that they only tick boxes over things. If you wind back to when they came in, John Henry was talking about wanting to engage with local fans, wanting to understand the city, all that sort of thing. And he did a lot of at first, he did speak to fans, and they set up the fans committee and stuff like that. All that has slowly started to drift away. And it seems like decisions now are not really made that often with consultation with the fans. And that obviously led to the situation which you will have all seen, where it ends up with Liverpool fans walking out of the game against Sunderland the other season. That in itself is a barometer that they got things wrong big time. And at the moment, okay, they're getting things right, but it still feels to me that, sort of behind the scenes, it needs someone big leading, like a Klopp, but a Klopp in the boardroom. And they haven't got that. They've got Ian Ayres on his way out at the end of this season. And I think we need a big administrator in, old school, a Peter Robinson style figure who can work with Klopp, who's got nous, who can go into almost the darker arts of football.
Peter Ridsdale.
No, mate, you're all right. You can keep it.
Not that dark.
Fucking spending more on face than Joel Matip.
Ferguson likes Klopp, doesn't he? So he's always going on about how good he is. Maybe he wants
if you called me John Lennon.
He could, Ferguson could come and step in and show us the winning way. How about that?
All right, quick prediction for the weekend, guys. Who wins? Which score?
I'll go for it. I think there'll be goals at both ends, and I'll go for something mad. I'm going to say 3-2 Liverpool.
Stephen?
I was thinking 3-2 myself. I think he's right. I think there is going to be goals. I think it's going to be a very open game, and I think 3-2 United.
All right, lads. Listen, thanks very much for doing this. Stephen, all the best for Full-Time Devils, mate. Gareth, all the best for Anfield Wrap. 2 fantastic resources for fans, independent fans, voices that we need in the game today. So, brilliant. Thanks very much, lads. Take care. Thanks for doing it.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
boys. See ya.